one of the key questions was asked, like verbally and not verbally. It's like, okay, technology, yeah, we got it. Technology, ChatGPT, we know it. But how do we make sure that this is compliant? In other words, if something happens, how do we make sure that regulator is not, fining us? How do we ensure we're keeping our jobs? How to protect ourselves? That's a question that people always ask with AI. In this sense, one of the methods that we use, it's called Bowtie analysis. So Bowtie, because of the this Bowtie means verb for formal events. So conceptually, in the center we have a very important risk event, and on the left part we had threats. On the right part we have consequences. So risk event, threats that are coming, inputs, and consequences, the output, something that can happen. So let's talk about this because it's one of the important parts. The most important question here is that AI generates some recommendation for the second case, for difficult one. And what happens if this recommendation is actually approved without checking it out? Yeah, like what happens with ChatGPT? Ask ChatGPT to write a text and then just copy paste it to my presentation. Nothing happens. Yeah, you will just say, hey, Alexis copied it from ChatGPT, but nothing happens. In the case of medical lab, it's critical. So in the case of medical lab, somehow we need to ensure that this is not happening. And not just to ensure, we need to showcase to regulator, if something happens, that we actually had some controls in place to prevent this. And ideally, we would need to showcase how these controls were working, if they were working. Yeah, so not just in our imagination, but to show it on paper. So before, we need to understand what the threats are. Human assumes AI is correct. So I see the results and, okay, AI is correct, I just press approve button. Can happen, can happen. So how can we prevent this? One of the ideas was just to ask human not just to press approve button, but to write some explanation. Yeah, why you think you approve these results. Is it good control? Well, it's a kind of weak control, yeah? Because eventually you understand what will happen. Human will just, copy paste some random text, and like anyway, when you visit a doctor, in the report you have a text like a person well hydrated arrived to this consultancy. So this well hydrated, it's in all reports in Spain. But how do they understand if you're well hydrated or not? They don't, they just copy and paste. So it's a weak control. Another threat, superficial review. So when we do superficial review, we do it when we sign up with some service and they ask us to read the terms and conditions. So what we do, anyone reads? No? Now with ChatGPT, we can at least copy paste to ChatGPT and ask if something dangerous is there, but no one reads. And what services are doing, they are now asking you to open it, and some services even ask you to scroll down to the end to make sure that you scroll down to the end. Yeah. Anyway, another weak control, probably we can do it. We can give a minimal time for the review. You have like 2 minutes to review, and you have two options. So you're just looking at the screen, or you need to move your mouse and to make sure that you're kind of doing something. Again, weak control. What else? Stronger control. A stronger control is to sometimes inject something abnormal. Yeah. So we create some sample and we tell AI, okay, this one is bad, but you AI, you should answer that is actually correct. And our idea is to see if doctor or person who is reviewing this will capture it. Yeah, so we kind of making a trap here. Stronger control, but we cannot use it too often. Otherwise, the overall time people spend on all this will be more than they were spending before AI. Yeah, so we need to be careful about this control. Yeah. Another case is that actually AI, the person thinks that AI is always right. Yeah. And again, we cannot use these controls all the time. So probably what we can do is display a confidence score. And actually, that's what regulations tell us to do. You're not just giving the result. You're saying, okay, we have this positive result or this negative result, but the confidence score is, I don't know, 80%. So if it's 80%, person will review it quickly. But if it's like 20%, okay, I'm all attention here. I will look at it and I will just analyze it in details. So that's idea of the threats and how we can prevent them. But what if we implemented all these controls, but we were not successful? So this risk event, which is result approved without oversight, if it's actually happened, what we do in this case, what consequences we have, and how we can mitigate with these consequences. So incorrect results are delivered. So you, for example, had to do a COVID-19 test. You're not positive, but you are delivered as a positive. And now you cannot fly. No, I don't know if they don't check, but before this. So what to do in this case? The control in this case would be to, for some serious results, for some serious analysis, to do a second human review of the results. Yeah. So basically, we add another lawyer to prevent this. Another problem might be that we trained our AI, we created the context, we created all this data, and it includes some errors, and it systematically gives positive, for example, for certain combination of parameters. And actually, that's what happens with the human operators as well. Sometimes you just have this bias, and because of you was not trained or because the official position on this was approved. Again, solution for this is to do some random sampling and to make sure that at least we have some control in place, that sometimes we'll pick random results, review them very carefully, and if something pops up, we will detect it. And regulatory non-compliance. Yeah. We did something and it's not breaking the law, breaking the regulation. And somehow we need to prove that all this was reviewed by human person. So how we do this? Well, the technical solution is to keep audit trail for all these clicks that we did, all these reviews that we did. Well, you can go in further, like record the person who is reviewing, that he or she was actually reviewing and not checking the phone, well, depending. Yeah. A lot of ideas here. For now, we just map the risk, the consequences of the risk. Technically, it looked like this, sample data, so feel free to take pictures. Center the risk event, left side threats, right side consequences, and for all of them there were controls, and for all of the controls there were some numbers, there was some live data coming. So it's just one page, and that's why finally it became popular.